How's everyone doing? Good. Good. Yeah, GCAP we kind of got in late. Sorry. How did it start for you all?
Great.
Yeah. Fantastic. And any standouts yet? How's the keynote? I imagine it was amazing.
Yeah.
Right, because Ren is just like. Is it Ren and Tim? Is it?
Yes. Yeah, Ren and Tim.
Beautiful. Oh, so good. Unpacking is amazing. Cool. Hello, welcome to GCAP. Welcome to our panel talk, fireside chat. You see that little kind of fire thing in the background? I feel very proud of that. We're going to be talking about this topic. I don't know if it's cryptic. More than our masks, which is kind of an exploration of who we are and the many ways that we are. I'm Meena Shamaly. I'm a composer. I do do some things on radio and other things. I have more than that mask. Would y'all care to introduce yourselves?
Hey there, hi, I'm Samra-Jade Sendek. I am a Gunai and Plunge Marina woman. I am a narrative designer, writer, and QA tech. Based out of just a few blocks away from here. Specialize in working with large and established IP. My credits include Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. And when I'm not game developing, I'm either at the gym, getting the MMA wheels back on, or bootlegging kombucha.
Hi everyone. I'm Starling Tan. I'm a composer, session musician. Also an Asian female, which makes me an anime waifu. But more about me later.
Cool. Yeah, y'all went more detail than I did already. But we invite you to ask questions as you go. We've just been asked that if you ask a question, come up to the mic and say it. We'll have Q&A at the end as well if you'd like. But yeah, just feel free to hey, I want to say something. I want to ask you something. We retain the right to be like, maybe the question's out of the scope, and let's chat about it later, if that's okay with everybody. Do we agree on this? Fantastic. All right. So who are we? You've already gone through this.
Oh, jeez. Let's get off the rank, yeah. Save up on everyone, just getting a mouthful of repeat information. I've been active for about 3 years now. I've been basically bouncing from pillar to post on a number of indie projects. Right now I'm working on something that's G14 classified. Right now I'm working with Netmarble Neo. They're a mobile company based out of Korea. So the biggest claim to fame I've got is Game of Thrones Tale of Crows. It's an idle game where you play as the various Lord Commanders of the Night's Watch and you go and experience the story at your pace. I've also done a lot of TTRPG writing before and during. So my first paid gig was with Cubicle 7 on the One Ring RPG 2nd edition, which unfortunately got canned. I've also worked on Amazon Alexa skills with Tavern of Voices, Kevin Power, if you know him at all.
Woo!
Local shout-outs. And also did QA for a while with Ardent Roleplay. So, yeah, I've been around the block a few times.
And I think, just as a background, I realized I should have probably said this background first, but this is a background, the whole idea of this talk and this panel. Talk feels like kind of like I'm talking at you. It's like the whole idea of this get-together is this welcome to our home. Is this idea that, there's all kinds of people here, and we kind of wear certain signifiers on our body, on our faces. We present things in a kind of certain way. Like, it's very easy to be like, oh, you're more than you are. Like, it's like you look like one thing, but you can be so many things. It's basically the Emoji Movie. Like, that's the whole basis of it. Apparently. I only watched the CinemaSins version. But and it's easy to be cynical, to be like, hey, don't put me in a box, right? I look like this, and therefore you expect this of me. I think I like the more charitable take, or the more kind of positive way of seeing it, is just being excited about exploring everything that someone brings to a table. Because I think, you might meet someone and you have a 5-minute conversation. That conversation could blow your mind with all that they brought to the table, or it could tell you absolutely nothing because they're very private and they're just like secretly amazing. And I mean, these lovely people are not so secretly amazing. I've had the pleasure of knowing them for quite a while now, so it's yeah. So to get to know more of who you are. Oh, it's me.
Mina's also amazing.
So I'm Meena. I write music for video games and for other kind of narrative media. I also present a show on video game music on ABC Classic, which is really fun because I'm one of three brown people in a predominantly white institution, which is just what it is. It's just the fact of the matter. But it's really awesome. I get to talk about video games on radio every week, and we get messages from 80-year-olds who are like, oh my God, I don't play video games, but I love video game music. Thank you very much. It's beautiful. It's just the most beautiful thing. And I'm a session musician, so I record instruments and voices and voices. I've done a little bit of VO, but yeah, I record instruments and vocals for different kinds of projects. I get called on to do a lot of Middle Eastern instruments due to my kind of areas of knowledge. But composers tend to like to be chameleons, and we just kind of like to go into a whole bunch of areas. So yeah, I'm working on Innchanted. I'm the composer for that with some amazing First Nations musicians. I recently worked on Old World with Christopher Tin, if anyone knows who that is. If you don't, we'll talk about it later. I wear the ABC Classic thing. It's like, that's easy for people to kind of glom onto if they have no idea about games. So yes, Starling.
Yes, hard to follow that up, but I'm also a composer and I'm also a session musician. But I wouldn't say that I am predominantly Asian presenting in terms of the music I write. I come from a classical background, so I did Western classical music, which includes piano, oboe, cello, and I'm also an arranger. So to mention some of the projects I've worked on, Flower Knighthood is a visual novel RPG. Loch Mess is a Scottish-inspired puzzle game, and we'll be playing some music from that later. And I'm also part of Sinister Creative, which kind of brings to life video game music concerts. I don't know if anyone was at Soundbite earlier this year, which was a celebration of Australian video game music. So that was a really great experience. And you should all come to our Pokemon concert on October 29th at Federation Square as well.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Got a awesome slate of people.
Sorry, I just wanted to say something else as well.
Go for it.
I just wanted to say that there's some element of discomfort in being here and bringing to light these differences that we have. So I guess as a minority, an Asian female, as I said, the anime waifu was tongue in cheek, I guess. I feel to some extent it's better to keep quiet about these things. Meena mentioned that he was one of 3 brown people in a predominantly white establishment. And I feel there was bravery in even pointing that out, because if you point it out, you run the risk of other people noticing. And yeah.
Just to build on that, what is it? The amount of First Nations people, so Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, just off the top of my hand, there's myself, there's Phoebe, Ben Armstrong, Paige Sorensen in Rulu, or so-called Perth. There's another one, Nick Ritchie, student, Sydney Way, Narayan, who worked on Cult of the Lamb, banging soundtrack. Handful of others, as Meena said, musicians. Olivia, I forget a couple of others artists, so roughly there's fewer than 15. And we're 3% of the population, so you would think there'd be 30, 40, maybe 50 of us, and we're like very creative people, so maybe another 10 on top of that, but it's like you could only name like a handful at that, and it's actually kind of sad that it's like a lot of us would choose not to identify because that discrimination, that active genocide is still ongoing.
And to grab onto that, when I was first approached to do Enchanted, my first question is, the Enchanted is basically, First Nations stories, First Nations themes, First Nations characters and designers and all that kind of stuff. And then my first question was like, but I'm not an Indigenous musician. You should probably find someone who is. It's like, we looked and we couldn't find any, which is an easy thing to be like, did you look? And then I looked, and I looked at it, and there was a lot of Indigenous musicians, but none who were doing video games. Until like, I found about Riverboy like a year and a half later, through the musicians that we worked with on the soundtrack, and I was like, and even then, like at the time, I was asking, hey, so what's this game thing you're working on? He's like, I can't talk about it. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
And then Cut to the Land, I was like, that's it. Oh my God, that's amazing. And even if you've come across this virtual AR experience called Virtual Songlines. It's an amazing project by Brett Levy. And I called him up and asked him, he's like, who did the music for this? He's like, I did, because I couldn't find anyone else. And I think that's pretty telling of the visibility, I suppose. Because I don't know, you can tell me, speaking to your point, really.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there's ongoing genocide, not just because of it's hard, we're hard to find. It's like we're all over the place. There's a lot of us up in country, and country being well over 200 spheres of territory. That's you'd say is Australia, so-called Australia is really big, and we've got 7 states that you can't really just drive through on a single day. But keep in mind, the mainland of Australia is about the same size as Europe. You could take a day trip from one side of France and be in the border of Poland by nightfall. Well, it's the same thing as you could say start in Sale, go through Gunai land, take a day trip, cut up to Gunditjmara land, cut another way, go through Bunurong, then go through Woiwurrung land, and finish your day up in Djadjawurrung land. So in other words, you could go up from Sale all the way to I forget one of the towns around Gunditjmara land. You could go up through there, then you could head to Pakenham, then you could go up to Preston, and end up in Bendigo by the end of the night. So you actually have driven through multiple countries. It's that's how big this island continent actually is.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so we're all out on those lands, and not just specifically in Rulu, in Tandanya, in Meanjin, or so-called Melbourne, so-called Adelaide, so-called Brisbane, or so-called Perth. So we're all out there. We do exist. It just is a point of okay, well, either we're just not really advertising that fact because do you find
that kind of puts some weight on you to advocate and to kind of carry the weight of that in the game scene, like you and the 15 others you mentioned?
For me, it's because I'm white passing, and it's for me, there's just an incredible amount of imposter syndrome. Should I really be doing this? Should I be platforming, Pidge? Should I be platforming someone else? Should I really just get off the stage because people will just think I'm visibly white? But then then what's her name, Jacinta Price or Jackie Lambie steps up, fucks the bus for everyone involved, and I'm just oops, I used my one F-bomb.
What's the rating on this talk? This is R18. This is R18. Go for it.
Okay. So Jackie Lambie and Jacinta Price, they make fools of mob everywhere, and then it's just oh my God, you fucking coconuts! No! You don't get to drag all of us through this as well. So Yeah, like if no one else is gonna step up, then it's like I've got to step up. There's got to be at least someone doing it, because like even now it's like someone's got to step up and tell the truth. Someone's got to step up and say it's like, no, we aren't like, we're more than just cultural consultants. We're not just here to give you the cultural competency tick box. We are competent at what we do. We are very good storytellers. We've been doing it for 50,000 plus years. We know how to spin a yarn. Hire us for the actual jobs, not just like, oh, okay, oh, so that's what that word means. Jesus Christ.
And I suppose I find that's... Sorry, were you going to say something?
I think the only really interesting thing I was going to say, which I kind of took away from our brunch as well, that we had brunch before this to prepare, so that was very fun. Yeah, just like Samara-Jade mentioned, you're white passing. Meena and I are not, so I find that it's interesting that personally I feel like I've tried hard to assimilate. I wouldn't say any word that would out me as different, but hearing you talk about all of these different names for different locations in this country, that immediately puts you as other, and I think that's so brave.
I mean, like I said, it's like if like, I mean, I feel like personally, I feel there's a responsibility for me to do that. It's not so much me just trying to rebel against a lack of melanin in my skin. It's a bit deeper than that. It's like, it's very much rebelling against that, I keep saying genocide, and it is genocide, that ongoing assimilation process, that ongoing destruction of culture. It's like, no, that's one part of like my mask, that very rough and tumble character that everyone sees, that actually is part of my identity, is that like I trace a lot of my heritage from warriors. I was raised by a reservist. As the books, my grandfather, or so the books say, he fought in the Second World War. My great uncle, so the books say, fought in the Great War. So it's like there's kind of that. It's kind of that legacy I'm also trying to live up to. It's like, no, like I've got to. I've got a responsibility to fight this. I've got a responsibility to do something. And anyone who knows me is just like, I cannot sit still for 5 minutes and not do something.
That's amazing. Well, let's dig into the masks. The Starling presents as this, you know, you see Spider-Man, and it's just like someone with superpowers, and then it's just you take the mask off and it's a 15-year-old kid. You know, that's basic. So who's your Spider-Man? Who's your Peter Parker? Starling.
Or is it just both my Final Fantasy XIV character with and without a mask? I think that's a hard question because, yeah, I guess with the mask on, I guess I present as an Asian female who is a musician. And as I said, I've tried hard to assimilate, so maybe people don't notice and don't notice that I am not a white cis male. So I guess without the mask, though, I would try to emphasize like my skills, the fact that I grew up. Oh yes, I was born in Australia. I wasn't born in an Asian country. I don't speak an Asian language well, and I'm fluent in English. Like these things shouldn't be questioned, but they just are, I guess. So, yeah.
And I suppose this comes back to the point of I've found that different artists, different game devs, but specifically in the arts and music kind of space, some people identify as I am a so-and-so first and then a musician, like I'm Aboriginal first or I'm Middle Eastern first or whatever, and then a musician. And then some people are like, no, I'm a musician first, then all that other stuff kind of falls in line. And I think both things are valid because it really relates to how you practice your art. So in that sense, I get the feeling you're saying like you're a musician first.
Yeah.
I get that feeling about you. I don't know.
No, I definitely agree. I wouldn't say, yeah, I'm like predominantly an East Asian musician trying to push the culture of my people. I feel as though I'm more versatile than that, and I would love to explore different genres and styles.
That's beautiful. Like if you've been to Soundbite, you just get like a hint of Starling as a performer, but then also all the stuff she does behind the scenes to get a concert like that together. And yeah, and just I think just your presence is so wonderful in that space. Like on stage, it feels really calming. So she's musician, arranger, composer, therapist, stage therapist.
Oh, thank you, Meena.
Cool. We will dig in a little more into your the mask on, mask off persona. Samara-Jade, I think you've kind of touched on the mask on, mask off thing. Quite a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
I think you really need more detail.
So mask on, it's like the mask on persona is very much like that. Very reckless, take no prisoners, like battle goth aesthetic that I really try to cultivate. And the mask off is really like I try to care in my own way, especially when it's like when I'm also autistic. It's actually very hard for me to emote some days. It's like I got told very bluntly on Friday when I was rehearsing a script to train up some nurses at Holmesglen. I got told point blank, Jade, your blunt is like an anvil. Don't do that. I'm like, but therein lies like a different part of the mask. Is like I actually give a shit about a lot of people. I've got this rough exterior. It's very calloused and scarred and almost like an echidna at points. But there are also times there where it's like I've had an industry colleague, like I love her to pieces, an absolutely amazing person. Basically, we were having a yarn one night and I opened up about my martial arts background. And she says, oh, that makes so much sense about how you carry yourself now. And it's like, oh, okay, well, could you elaborate? And she said, oh, well, if I hadn't met you or I hadn't actually taken the time to get to know you, it's like, and I saw you coming down the street, I would move away or ask you to take a different route because it makes me a little uncomfortable. And in that moment, my heart broke. I don't ever want to be in that position where it's like I'm making someone feel like they're uncomfortable in my presence. I love people. I'm a big softie inside. It's like I'll be the first one on the plate to defend you if needs be. But at the same time, no, if you've got no reason to be scared of me, please don't be scared of me.
I'm definitely not scared of you.
Thank you. Oh, you gammon.
Cool. Well, maybe I'll talk about my mask. Hashtag and a movie. Yeah. So I suppose I'll work backwards from this one because I've sort of become someone who people go to for Middle Eastern music. Partially because I kind of lean into that. I very clearly look it. Unless someone's like, what kind of brown are you? I can't really tell. And then some people start speaking other languages to me. I'm like, I'm sorry, man, I'm not from there. It's okay. But part of why I say that is because I came to Australia when I was 15. I used to live in the Middle East and come from an Egyptian and Lebanese background. But I've never lived in Egypt or Lebanon. So I kind of was always a stranger, I was always a foreigner. And when it came to being in Australia, at 15 is a weird age to kind of leave home and start a new life and make new friends and everything. And then figure out who you are in that time. Now, 20 years later, I could look back and it's like, oh man, that was just really weird. 15, I was like, oh, I'm taking it in stride. I know what I'm doing. Oh yeah, I'm gonna start listening to some cool music because I don't want people to judge me for the music that I do actually like. Because I grew up loving classical music, and then all my friends were listening to Michael Jackson and listening to to Usher and that kind of thing, and I wasn't into that yet. through my kind of rebelling against who I'm supposed to be, because also, being brought up Christian, and that means the only music you listen to is like Christian music. And like, no, and Arabic Christian music, because I know your mind instantly went to like Hillsong. No. I'm talking like Arabic Christian music, which is a mix of like the sound of Arabic pop and like Gregorian Byzantine chants. Like, that's the spectrum of it. It's amazing. But, you know, there's a thing of like, you grow up at 15 and then like, oh, you're about to finish high school. You have to think about your future. You have 3 options, doctor or engineer or doctor. And because mom's a doctor, so there was a lot of pressure, and I'm a failed pharmacy student. I was literally kicked out of pharmacy school because of how much I didn't want to be there. And I like this, when they kicked me out, they used the word excluded. We have opted to exclude you from the pharmacy school. It's like, really, who the hell says that? Who the hell chooses that wording? It's just like ridiculous. But I was always kind of fighting up against who my parents wanted me to be. And they said, you're culturally Egyptian, and you know, they're more Egyptian than Lebanese. It's like, you're culturally Egyptian, and you were gonna be a doctor, and you're gonna do this, and you're gonna, can I be a singer-songwriter who does like, you know, who likes pop and R&B? What the hell is wrong with you? We didn't come to this country for you to become a musician. Now, of course, they're like, oh my God, my son's on radio. It's hilarious. We still argue about it, but much less so. So I was always kind of pushing against like who I'm supposed to be and not being traditional and that kind of stuff. So then I kind of became all these different versions of myself until I came back to kind of like, Middle Eastern music is kind of cool, you know? Like if you really think about it, when it's not being shoved down your throat by everyone around you. You know, it's super cool, and I was doing things that I'd grown up doing, like singing Middle Eastern music, and then, you know, I was connecting to game composers and film composers around the world, and it's like, hey, does someone sing Middle Eastern music or play Middle Eastern instruments? I do. Did you want that? And I kind of accidentally fell into doing that. So kind of, I present the whole Middle Eastern thing now a lot because I love doing it. But I never wanted anyone to assume that that's all I was good for. Because I fell in love with video game music. I jokingly claimed to be the only Arab video game composer until I realized Clark Aboud, composer of Slay the Spire, is half Egyptian. He beat me to it. So I'm the world's second Arab video game composer. So yes. And yeah, I also, you know, ended up at a classical station. I don't think I've seen other Middle Eastern people at that classical station, at ABC Classic. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know my ABC Classic history. But even then, it was just to do the one like kind of out there thing that was like against type. So I like being against type in a sense. And that excites me. And it excites me to explore like what it is against type. So let's dig into some of your music, Starling.
Next slide.
Yes. Do you want to tell us about these 2 projects?
Yeah, so I think these are good examples of my music being mask on and mask off. So as you can see, one of them's an Asian-inspired project, and the other one's Scottish-inspired. Not Scottish, so why did I write it?
Oh, whoa. Oh. God.
That is like...
Yeah.
I was going to play it. Okay.
Okay, so this is an Asian-inspired track using Asian instruments. You can hear chords are quiver, but blended with Western instruments as well. And that's a tin whistle, but played kind of in the style of a Chinese flute.
That's really cool. Do you want to do the next one? Did you hear the rest of this?
No, that's okay. Yeah, we can move on to the next one.
It's beautiful. Could you give her a round of applause? All right, and do you want to hear the second piece from that?
Yeah, so that's a good song again. just say a little bit about this project. So it's, as I said, set in an East Asian-inspired setting, which is also solar punk magical setting. So it's kind of an alternate fantasy world with still Asian elements in the architecture, art style, and music as well, and the lore as well. So it's a visual novel, so very story-oriented, and you play as like a magical girl who becomes a flower knight, and then encounters two love interests. One of them is a female, one is a male. So yeah, playing into that. I was going to say VL, but the opposite of VL, I guess. Visual novel stereotype.
It's really beautiful, and I think one of the things it doesn't sound like a pastiche of that, because it could be so easy for that. It could be so easy for something like that to sound like a pastiche and be like, oh, it sounds Asian enough, kind of thing, you know. And I say that from the point of view that with Middle Eastern music, you got a lot of things like, it sounds Middle Eastern enough. They don't care. It's like, no, you know what? People care. People care because it's beautifully creative. Did you want to talk about Loch Mess before we play a little bit?
Yeah, I'll talk about actually before that. I think I'll just mention that actually I sought out this game, so I applied to join this dev team that was already working on it. They didn't seek me out because I was Asian. I don't know if that played a part, but I suspect it was because I had already written some like Asian-sounding music, so they liked that. But I was just going to say that, well, it's relevant to like, I kind of wanted to work on this because I've always been really interested in like Chinese instrumentation, and that was probably influenced by like my upbringing. A really important part of how I worked on these two different soundtracks was kind of researching the actual music of these cultures. So I listened to a lot of like Chinese classical music, also listened to like Genshin Impact, which is kind of blend of like Chinese and Western styles as well, like uses like hip hop beats and stuff. Really cool soundtrack. But yeah, with Loch Mess, I also listened to a lot of traditional Irish bands, kind of like, does anyone know Fluke?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my gosh, Fluke is amazing, but they're basically like tin whistle and Irish flute oriented Irish band, yeah. So if we go to the first example, this is kind of Irish inspired, or Irish Scottish inspired track, blending those two. Okay, I've got to say that was a MIDI, and that was a choice.
But you've played it live. I've seen you play it live.
I did play it live as well, but no, I decided to use a MIDI because it fits the aesthetic. So that drum you can hear is going to
Boron?
Yeah, there we go.
Is that how you pronounce it? Boron? The Irish frame drum?
Yeah.
Boron.
So.
It's there's a D in there, but I think it's silent.
But as you can see, I've mixed those traditional Irish instruments or Scottish instruments with piano as well and cello. So
You tell me when you want to shut it off. If you want to play the whole thing through. That's it up. Give a round of applause for that music.
PowerPoint just doesn't want to work today.
There we go. Oh no.
I'm a lot.
Dude, next. Thank you. We are audio professionals.
I mean, you two are.
You are
I just do words.
Words are cool. Words are cool.
Yeah, words are cool.
So tell us about your words.
As I said earlier, I did a bit of TTRPG writing. I've basically done 10 years of writing as a hobby when I was still doing MMA, and that's kind of just where I naturally moved to after I had a heart attack and it killed that career. So one of the things I worked on was actually a cyberpunk pastiche in the in the cyberpunk setting of Neo Melbourne in Hardwired Island. A lot of trans creatives in that as well, so if you want to check that out, please do. So what I ended up writing was it was basically like just translating the Sybil system from Psychopass, and then trying to make it like ruthlessly capitalistic, and then give the players like a means and an ends to get rid of it. So that's sort of what I got basically at face value, what I was brought on to do. And at not so face value, whenever I was working on Game of Thrones and I had the opportunity to work like with a free folk focus, that's where I was able to showcase a lot more of my background in history. That's when I could showcase more of my background culturally, more of my background in regards to military expertise. So when all those came together, they came together in adventures like the Old Gods of the Forest, where basically you just had to send a guy out, leave him alone, and he would come back, and the Old Gods would send him back. But the more you tried to interdict in that, the more the Old Gods would get a bit snappy and just like actually curse you. Another one was with regards to basically telling a different story of the Crusades. So if you're familiar with the series, there's the Faith of the Seven, which is basically fantasy Christianity. So they do the Christian thing and go try to do a colonialism on the frozen north. They get their asses kicked, and you, the Night's Watch, have to drag them back. Anytime I've got leeway to work in there's like not so much retellings, but definitely like those key beats of history, those key beats of like just being able to say, hey, colonialism's bad. That's what that's where it's like, okay, the mask comes off, and and that's what I try to inject into my writing.
It's beautiful. I'm going to go to the next because we've only got like 5 minutes left.
Go for it.
No, I think the problem with this topic is that we can speak endlessly on it. Like, we sat there for a couple of hours
2.5
over
hours.
brunch, and we weren't done. We weren't remotely done on the topic.
Nope.
I think that's always been my problem. So this is amazing, though. Can you give a round of applause? People working some cool stuff around here. Speaking of cool stuff, this is like 10 years apart. Most recently I was talking about, I worked on Old World with Christopher Tin, and if anyone doesn't know who that is, if you've played Civilization 4, you've heard that song, that's like Grammy Award-winning song, like video game song.
Absolute banger.
Absolute banger. I'm giving a talk on that whole soundtrack at PAX, if you're going to be there. So plug. But we ended up connecting, and he needed some Middle Eastern kind of consultation and performance, so I did that, which kind of really leans into, this is my background, this is my expertise, this is how I grew up, and I play these instruments. Great. I'm so happy to kind of explore it. And I think that's where I'm going, like, the mask is, this is what I look like, and this is what he hopefully expects someone who is Middle Eastern to, like, do with Middle Eastern music. There's a whole other side of the conversation about, exploring cultures of music, like musical culture that isn't yours, which my thing isn't don't do it. It's like there's a lot that you can do with it creatively, and that's the topic of my PAX talk. So let me play some of that. So this is me doing some vocals, and like Chris has done this incredible arrangement around it. I can't skip ahead, can I? Not in here. Sorry?
It's okay. Just listen.
That's enough of that. Thank you. And I also played the oud, which is a Middle Eastern lute. Like if you've seen any Renaissance kind of thing, I play the grandparent of that Renaissance instrument. Which again, Christopher just did an incredible job around it. It's got like this kind of like neoclassical vibe mixed with the Middle Eastern stuff. It's just, yeah, which is really what the game was about. Thank you. And finally, one of the first game projects I ever worked on was with a composer, Piotr Michal, who's 11-Bit Studios, who also did Frostpunk like years later. And they're doing this mobile phone game about being a TSA agent in the 70s. So it's like comically like a bunch of Polish guys acting like imagining what America was like in the 70s. And so Piotr, who's a Polish composer, had a Polish guitarist kind of do some really awesome funk. And then we ended up connecting. It's like, hey, I need a lyricist. So it's like, hey, like in an R&B kind of hip hop kind of style. It's like, I love hip hop. I don't know if anyone knows that about me, but I love hip hop. Like it is just like, I listen to classical and hip hop. It's amazing. And I love R&B and soul and that kind of thing. So we ended up collaborating, and I've got a friend who is of South Indian descent who does an amazing John Legend impression. So that's kind of how this piece ended up happening. Have a dance if you'd like. One of the fun things is I was like trying to write like really good lyrics. And they tell me like, your lyrics are too intelligent. Can you make it more fun?
Welcome to the funk festivities. Follow my lead if you're ready to be free. Falling in love with the sound of music again. The heels are alive with the sound of the speed. Let the backbeat beat the backbone to your body when you're bouncing. You find yourself in the zone to roam. Come on now. The funk is free for all to feel now.
Gotta get underground to the sound of the funky beat over town. Struggle in the loop to make that cash. First class sounds that are gone in a flash. Gotta get underground to the sound of the funky beat over town. Struggle in the loop to make that cash. First class sounds that are gone in a flash.
I got a knot on my tail, I'm up here right out of here before they see me. See me on the quick getaway time, stay away.
There we go. Okay, there we go. Beautiful. I was going to get that last slide back up again. Let's talk even more. I know we're totally out of time and we're going to get kicked out in a moment. I don't know if we have time for questions, but I think is the wise thing for people to ask us questions privately after the talk? Yes? Cool.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Just before we wrap up, anytime I'm up here, up on stage or up in public doing any kind of mob business, I do like to give shout outs to anyone doing good work. So, like I did see Phoebe in here earlier, so I'm gonna plug Guck, who actually is getting mob representation and getting mob employment right. Woo. Very right.
Beautiful. Starling, anything you want to say to wrap up?
I would also like to shout out to my fellow East Asian brothers and sisters. No, honestly, I wish I could.
Shout out to Toby Mac.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there isn't the same kind of group out there, but yeah, there is an Asian game audio Discord, which is really cool. If anyone wants to join that, let me know.
Cool. And yeah, I shout out the other Arab composer there is. I invite more of my Arabs and Middle Eastern presenting people to come, and North African as well, because Middle East includes the North Africa. And let's be more than our mosques. Thank you very much, everybody. If you want to chat afterwards, we're around. We can hang around, ask some questions, and love to say hello. Follow us on social medias.